people on the channels, they take a cross section, right? They take a cross section of the culture. It's like, how can you say that these people are in decline? They're more numerous than they have ever been. They control everything, right? How can you say they're going to be here forever? Right. They're going to crush us under their feet. Blah blah blah. Yeah, but don't look at the numbers. Look at the trends. Are they waxing or waning? Do they have ideas or no? Are they passionate? Right? The answer is no. There's no passion in anything that they are doing. It is completely cynical, completely bankrupt.
They're very good at crying.
This gathering has been declared a riot. All persons leave the area now.
One more time. Okay. Hello and welcome to the Incel Riot Studios podcast. I am Will, and I am dressed outlandishly here in the Forbidden City, as you can see behind me. And up here is Connor, and he is my friend, an occasional consultant on games and such like. And Connor is going to introduce himself now. Introduce yourself.
I'm Connor. I consult Will on games and such and like on occasion.
On occasion. Yes, we were working on Escape from Epstein Island, but that project has seemed to fallen on hard times. We'll see if we can revive it sometime.
Yes. Yeah, hopefully.
Okay. I'm going to get rid of this Chinese background because I am tired of looking at it. There we go. Official background. I'll leave the mask, though, because it's very silly. Yeah, I wanted you on here because I want to talk about some stuff that I think a lot of people wouldn't understand, and I think you will. And I think you are the correct person to tell me that I am full of crap.
Might be the reverse happening. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I don't have many people around me that I can talk about like art stuff and aesthetic stuff. And you are well versed in your modernist poets and philosophers, Eliot and Pound and what have you.
I only like the worst ones. I only like the ones. I only like Pound. I only like poetry that is fully awful.
Purposefully awful.
Yeah.
And insane.
Yeah.
You know that when Pound was... I'll get to the topic in just a sec. You know that when Pound was put on trial for treason, the cantos were entered in as defense as proof that he was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
Anyway, the topic of today, I've gathered my thoughts. The topic today is vaporwave. Big vaporwave with a big V. I want to talk about that. There was a time, late 19th century, early 20th century, when all of your men of letters were well-versed in the classics, right? This is before universities taught job skills. If you went to university, it was because you were upper class, and they were going to train you in being upper class. And they had stopped teaching medievalism and law, and they were teaching all the classics, Greek and Roman, Greek and Roman, Greek and Roman, Greek and Roman. Right, and this makes the intelligentsia, the upper classes of the West. I don't know how intelligent they are. Upper class, you got money, right? You can go to school. Functionally bicultural. You know what I mean?
As in, so once as in the when the classics are introduced, or
like
kind of emphasized
and really beat into you. If you look like at a class schedule at the universities, like at 1880, 1890, it's like all classics, right? And they had just 1920s. They had just discovered Sumeria, and the writings on Egypt had just been decoded, and important work was being done on Sanskrit, right? Which, here's my thesis. We'll get to vaporwave in a sec.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Right, which makes these people like functionally bicultural. So you get somebody like Oswald Spengler coming along, who says that who realizes that the Western Christendom and classical antiquity could not be further from each other. Like there's nothing, there are no two cultures who are more different, right?
Allegedly.
And well, he said that. And being functionally bicultural, this is really hot. It's all plastic. And being
You look
functionally
really hot.
bicultural, you get like this historicism where people, this links up with the Enlightenment, right? You get this historicism where people feel like they know where they are in history, and they feel like it gives you a sense of space, like with regard to history and culture, right? We were once like this, and we became like this, right? And where are we going in the future? Which is what basically that's what progressivism is, right? Like there's a line, and we're
Right.
following this line toward, and the future will be more androgynous, more equal, more rational, what have you.
Spengler doing the exact opposite and introducing the notion of magnitudes.
Yes. Magnitudes. Well, Spengler reverses it all, right? He what he called it a Copernican revolution in historicism,
Right.
right? Where y'all are doing this thing from Greek classical antiquity to medievalism, and that's very Western. It's very Eurocentric. It's just very focused on what happened in Europe. There are all these other cultures that we're finding out about, and there are similar patterns of civilization and decay and stuff like that, right? And it gives birth to this. And here's where I'm going with this. And it gives birth to a really vibrant culture of literary criticism, right? Literary criticism,
Okay. Yeah, you're going now.
right? Where people realize, especially Pound. This is where I want to get to Pound, and we'll get to Vaporwave in a second, because I have a theory on that, which is going to make people laugh, but I have to say it anyway because I have thoughts in me and they have to come out. Where you see that the arts are like a leading indicator of culture, right? My hands.
Okay.
Put my hands in frame. Where the arts are a leading indicator of culture, and like politics are a trailing indicator. So anything that you see in politics now, it had precedent in the arts like maybe 60 to 80 years ago, right?
Okay.
Right?
I somewhat agree, yes.
You somewhat agree? Well, and he's quoted as saying that the artist, the maker, gets no satisfaction from politics at all because he's way over here. Like, he's way ahead. He's way ahead. Right? He's ahead, and the culture's lagging behind.
So, in what way are you tying Pound in particular in with this? Is he?
Well, he's the one who
And
really...
the other thing is, where are you tying the whole bicultural phenomenon in with this? So, there's kind of like a in addition to like the nationhood, there's sort of the intelligentsia, and that's like this very I don't know, hyper literary
Well, if you
kind
are
of culture.
if you are
nested within these different
monocultural,
nations.
your culture, you the way you will see it is you have no perspective on yourself, right? Like the way your culture
I see.
sees
Okay.
things is self-evidently
Right.
true, and it cannot be any other way, right?
Okay.
Like if you're Western, like what are some self-evident, like math is true, geometry is just true.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
Okay.
true. The world functions on numbers, and it had always been that way, and everybody else is
It's
just
all-
stupid.
All figure and no ground, basically.
Right. But if you're like steeped in classical antiquity, like, oh well, these people, they saw things a very different way.
Well, that's where I don't know how much I agree with Spengler on that. I mean, I do think. Well, I even just said like all figure and no ground. I do think that is a kind of continuity that exists, like from the so-called Apollonian to the so-called
Yes.
Faustian. There is
Connor. Let's assume that people watching this have no
Okay.
idea what you're talking about, which they probably don't.
Well, the Apollonian being the high culture that the It's Spengler's term
Yeah,
for the
classical antiquity.
right
Yep.
Faustian being the Western culture is something distinct from that.
Yes. He says there are no two cultures that are more different. I don't think I agree, but it's an interesting perspective.
Likening them in this terminology of figure and ground that I introduced, where you look at Euclid's Elements, and it's all figure without ground. The ground is pulled out of it, right? It's this is what like phonetic language or phonetic writing, I should say, kind of gives you the ability to do. And I mean, that's kind of the current that I see.
It's dissociated.
Yeah, right. Very, I don't know, I guess you would say right hemisphere of the brain.
Yes. And static. And static. The elements, the Platonic solids and everything, they're static. They never change. Right? They always are.
Right. McLuhan would have like described it as the acoustic man, or the hunter. The hunter is in an ecosystem, right? He thinks very ecologically in terms of the image, in terms of the figure.
No, that's a very Western thing. Although, you know what? People who like board games are so bored right now. Anyway, I gotta do it. I can't. Sorry, finish your thought.
No, that's basically. I mean, that's kind of the challenge I would put to Spengler, in brevis. But we're kind of getting away from this. We're getting away from vaporwave.
Right. Okay. I was coming to that. So
still laying out how to get there.
So like what 1920s, 1930s, like all the intelligentsia, like the poets are falling into despair because they see that Western culture is dying, and that there are no green shoots. Like it refuses to replenish itself, and that's that's what the wasteland is about. The wasteland is the culture, right? What's supposed to happen is you have like these cycles of culture. They begin as an artistic movement, they move through criticism, and then they become politics, right? And then they die out horribly, but then they are replaced. Then they are replaced with something new and vibrant, and that takes the same course, right?
Right.
And he sees that in the 1920s, that in the 1930s, that the first, I think it's the first. The wasteland is 4 parts. The first part of the wasteland is all the dead poets like refusing the call to rebirth, right? like they're all laying in their graves, and the spring is coming, but there's like no grass, no rebirth.
Reincarnation BTFO'd.
Okay. Yeah, reincarnation BTFO'd. Springtime BTFO'd. But, you know, after the war, and after Eliot and all those guys gratefully died, we get this anti-culture movement, right? Which most people, which has, over time, what does it start? It starts out as a progressive movement, and then the human potential movement, and then the civil rights movement, and then the social justice movement, and now it's just wokeism. Right? By the way, how fast did that work? Did that word take over? That word take over, like the headspace. It was not pushed by any media.
The word woke?
The word woke. The word woke.
Yeah, I mean, like once the Daily Wire, it's like, it's now it's all I hear anymore, you know?
I know.
The neocon type people.
Yeah, it was a thing on 4chan, like, I don't think it was more than 5 years ago, right? And it kind of stood around there, but then it took over.
It's like AAVE
so quickly.
I mean, it's like African American vernacular English.
Oh no, don't get me into that.
That I was hearing maybe like 10 years ago.
Okay, go ahead.
But no, I mean that's where it originated, from what I understand.
Well, it was rapper slang. Yes, it was, and
yeah.
It's very funny.
Are you suggesting that what the Ben Shapiro's of the world, they got this from 4chan.
Of course they did. It can't, like this
They were on
this is
Paul.
my ultimate thesis. I mean, let me get to it as fast as I can. Okay, so you have like this human potential movement, which I hate to disagree. Like everybody believes that this was inflicted on people by people with malicious intent, and I want to say that I'm sure that this is not true. It is a natural, a cycle of culture. People responding to the First World War, really, the crisis of like the two world wars, and coming to the conclusion that Western civilization is no longer worth propagating, right? That it has sinned, right? That idea, you hear that first in like 1919, 1920, when Paul Valéry wrote The Crisis of the Mind, and then the Wasteland comes right on after that, which has the same thesis, and the Hollow Man and all these things, like prefigured in art. And like in the 1950s, people see that as like an idyllic time, like best, but oh no, those were the parents who declined to teach Western civilization to their children. They pulled back, right? Maybe not that important to teach the kids, Maybe it's okay. Maybe we'll just teach them to be themselves. Maybe we'll just teach them to consume, right?
Figure it out themselves.
Yeah, and we're seeing the tail end of this. So like you get this cycle of like anti-culture, anti-Western culture, right? Not inflicted from the outside, entirely self-inflicted. And for a long, long time, I don't know, I think people thought that this would be the end. My thesis today is that there is an emerging culture, that you personally embody this culture. I am an observer of this culture. I guess I'm kind of joined in. I'm a little bit joined in.
This is why
I
you
didn't
trap me here?
because I think you will have an interesting perspective. I think my generation kind of like a central part. It kind of breaks both ways. Like half of them break for like woke culture, if we're going to call it that. I guess we're going to call it that. I don't like it, but that's what we're calling it. And then the other half breaks for like this new thing, which we're going to call broadly vaporwave, which I believe is a powerful new aesthetic, and it's interesting. And I believe it's in a state of pseudomorphosis. It hasn't really become yet what it is, right? But I want to talk about it and see if we can analyze what that thing is, what it means, and what it might become.
See, that is very interesting because I think that the exact opposite is true.
Oh no!
I think vaporwave ended in like
of broadly
2014.
Broadly vaporwave, because I don't know what I have any other name for this thing. We can call it
maybe it's just we just call it vapor.
Okay,
It's just vapor. That's all it is.
Name TBD.
It's an element.
Name TBD. I'm going to put vaporwave on the title of the video. I don't care. Broadly,
Okay.
big V vaporwave, broadly vaporwave.
Okay.
Because as an artistic movement, I want to analyze this artistic movement, right? What are the features of? Tell me what you think, and that will tell you what I think.
Man, you really brought on the wrong guest. I
No.
I know so many. I know so many great scholars of vapor.
No. I don't
I'm
want
not-
them. I don't want them.
I'm no
They're all
scholar
wrong.
of vapor.
They're all wrong. They're all full of crap. This is original
Well,
work here. We're
I
breaking
mean,
new ground.
From what I understand, I mean, a sort of retro fetishism, perhaps. I mean, is that
Sure.
would you consider that?
That is the topic, right? And that is what those
I see.
beanheads are able to perceive. Okay, let it aesthetically.
So
What is it?
you're thinking less like you're looking at the form vaporwave. You're thinking less
Yes.
of like all these Macintosh Plus or whatever the hell.
I know what it's
and,
about. I know what it's about.
okay.
But I want to talk about the
I
aesthetic
get you
because I
now.
think it applies to other things.
So I guess maybe if we're to give some definition to it, perhaps a sort of like you're in this world saturated by engineered objects,
Yes.
maybe.
Okay.
And many of them are decaying. You're kind of like, I don't know, figuring out how to juxtapose forms of decay with other forms of decay, with things that are maybe not as decayed, with things that are like really decayed, with things that are decades old, with things that are centuries old. I'm not sure. Again, like you've caught me very off guard with this. I had no idea that this is where we were going.
That's good.
I know.
If we prepared,
It's going to be very raw.
That's good. That's fine. That's fine. Let it be raw.
Yeah.
Here are some things that I observe. Okay. Number one, all the music is anonymous, and I think that's important. Name another genre that is like that. I can't think of one. All the music is anonymous.
I guess it depends on because that's a very punk kind of thing.
Punks aren't anonymous.
Well, no, more like I'm thinking like kind of the reemergence in the '90s. Not so much like your people are hiding their Christian names, but there's this sort of like, or like you think like black metal, or you think kind of the late '90s, early. I don't know. I just see precedence for it. There's lots of reference to these kinds of like naming customs too, I think.
There are precedents, but I think it's different, right? Where of course, you have had bands where people are anonymous, like Daft Punk or whatever. But yeah. I think in this case, the anonymity is a prerequisite to being part of the genre.
Okay. Yeah,
I think if you had, like,
I guess I can see that.
You're never going to get like a vaporwave diva, right? That just doesn't fit.
That would be hot.
It
but
can't,
yeah,
I don't think it can happen.
Work.
I don't think it can happen.
Yeah, that's the reason it's hot is because it's impossible.
Yes, under the rules of the aesthetic, which you understand.
Well, I think the last thing I said was I think a vaporwave diva is hot for the very reason that it's impossible.
Yeah, well,
so it's like it's totally within the realm of fantasy.
As a person who lives this culture, I think you understand the rules, right? Like you're never going to get like a vaporwave Bjork. It's impossible. Like you can't even show your face.
Gosh, stop putting these images in my head. Vaporwave Bjork. So just tell me what's wrong with vaporwave Bjork?
Nothing.
I'm very tantalized.
I think it's impossible. I think it's impossible. Because I believe the anonymity and the not-for-profit nature, like the anti-consumerist strain in the movement. Right. I think that's core. I think that's core. I think you can't violate it. Mm-hmm. I think somebody will try eventually because it seems like an obvious thing to try to do, but I think that will be rejected. Right? That's not. We don't consider.
I think it's already kind of. I mean. I don't leave the house too often. I don't go out and breathe the fresh air too often. But when I do enjoy the sweet top 40 ambiance, and sometimes I do hear a little bit of like vaporwave influence, at least in some of these.
Influence. We don't care about that.
Some of these songs, if you want to call them that. But yeah, no, I guess like being true to the cult. Yeah, I don't think.
Well. Again, look at past movements. Like I can't think of rock and roll, the boogie woogie, the punk. You can't. For being showing your face, having a name, and doing it for profit was never frowned upon.
Yeah. I think maybe vaporwave is very anti-sexual for that reason. It's like anti-personal.
I agree.
It's like you can't shake your hips.
It is collectivist. In a good way. In a good way. Okay. And I'm gonna.
It's corporate.
I believe that there are. I believe this goes beyond just the music. I believe this is the aesthetic of the entire culture, which is why the music is popular. Yes.
Right. I'm kind of drawing from the music to get the analog. You know what I'm saying?
Was that one thing or two things? Okay. Number three. It uses samples and it uses samples of things that are older, right? That's not the first time that's been done. But whatever it is distorted. And the distortion is a prerequisite. It must be,
Okay, yeah, because I guess in like hip hop, for instance, there's plenty of examples
sampling.
of just like
Sampling is not new.
very limited alteration.
Yes, right. It must be distorted in a way that makes it worse. Worse in an appealing way.
Ah,
We're going to defile this thing, or is it that it has been defiled, and our representation shows puts the defilement on display.
it's akin to sort of Deleuze's concept of a stray, perhaps, so that the representation kind of becomes this own sort of thing. You by representing, you just sort of like create this new thingamajig, this new object. It's and so through this process of like distortion that occurs in the act of representation, you get cats eating bones out of a trash can.
Yes.
Stray cat.
I think that's all. I think those three things make up the core. Maybe there's more. Maybe there was more that I thought of, and I can't think of them now. But now take those three things and apply it to meme culture. Are those three things not also true of the visual representations of not everything, but the things which are popular? The things that get shared. The art must be crappy. The art must be crappy. That is a prerequisite. And if you use images, you must destroy that image in some way. Either by laying a filter on it that makes it pixelized, but running it through like Photoshop and crushing it like JPEG artifacts, or putting like in video, right? Like running putting the VHS like tracking lines is the most popular filter you can get right now. It's like number one if you go on Envato Elements or some other.
I think that a lot of that. I think that trend kind of gives a sense of the post-human.
I think so.
It kind of gives that, like, what is coming out of that representation is you got people with green skin, you got people with like 4 or 5 sets of genitals and arms and legs,
Mm-hmm. What? I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. These are things that I'm seeing, and I'm agreeing. I'm agreeing with what you're.
Because there are good Photoshops, right? They're really well-made Photoshops, really great ones, and they're interesting for a minute. But these do not get shared around as much, right? The ones that are really popular are like the horrible like 4chan like black line drawings. They are intentionally crap. Right? Why?
Right. I think that I'm doing some devil's advocate here. Maybe
the wrong answer.
Just maybe there's the sort of quantity factor coming in there. Maybe it's like these things are. There's the meme market is so saturated.
I don't think that's the reason.
They're
objectively more popular.
With mass-produced
They're
memes.
objectively more popular.
Right. I'm saying that the popularity is a sort of incidental effect of like these mass-produced things getting picked up.
I don't think it is.
Because they saturate everything.
People who break the rules. Two ways to break the rules. Meme too high quality.
Okay.
Meme too high quality. Right? There are exceptions, like Stone Toss Comics. It's very high quality. G Prime 85, very high quality. Get shared around. Not as much still. But two things you can't make really well designed Photoshops and expect to share them around. That's one. And number two, you can't sign your memes. Like anybody who signs them, you're like, oh God, what does this guy think he's trying to do? It's like, who farted, right?
Yeah.
So same kind of deal.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm not sure if I agree, but I'm not. I mean, I think you honestly know more about these
I don't
things than
think I
I do.
know.
That's
I don't
that's
think
why
I
I'm
know
still
more. I
kind of
think maybe
tripped
I'm
up
thinking about it more.
about.
I
Perhaps,
think it
yeah.
plays a dual role. I think the crappiness of the art makes makes the media inclusive. Like anybody can make poopy art, and it's not offensive in that way, right?
Right. All they have to do is poop
Yes.
and then designate it.
But that makes it sound like they're actually not. They're actually very clever, and I don't think the badness is not just incidental, just to make it inclusive. It's
man.
intentional.
Cut out again.
Oh. Oh. I can hear me. I'll wait until you come back in. We didn't lose anything. How's it going, everybody?
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
Yeah, and it's like you said about the music. It's posthuman. The aesthetic embodies the posthumanism and the collectivism. I think both of these two. Collectivism is going to make some people mad. Don't call it collectivism. Friends.
Well, that's why I use
Friendship.
corporatism. I think it's more, although people don't like that word either. But
Well, what would you describe broadly Chan culture, the inclusiveness and friendship of it? Right?
it's like a colony, but I don't want to call it colonialism. It's like you just kind of it's almost like a pirate utopia kind of thing. It's almost like a I don't know. It's difficult to give it an ism. I'm not sure I could do that.
We're breathing rare air here. We're breaking new ground. I don't think this has ever been analyzed ever.
Yeah.
So we'll just maybe I'm completely wrong, but I want to get the ball rolling. If anybody sees this, on what on this analysis, and people will say they always do like, oh, it's just stupid. Oh, it's just foolishness. Okay, fine. It's stupid and it's foolishness, but why is it stupid in this way and not another way? Why is it foolishness this way and not some other way? There are a million different ways to be foolish.
Yeah, the particular way in which one is foolish is
This
actually the particular foolishness you find is actually more important than the particular intelligence you find in the same locale.
Yes. So what would you call what are the rules of this group? Let's think about it. Let's analyze. What are the rules? Broadly Chan or broadly Vaporwave. I think they're the same aesthetic. I believe this aesthetic is rising, and it is productive. You know what I mean?
There is, yeah. Its productivity is
Yes.
very, it's very hive mindy. Like
Yes.
I'm starting
It is
to
very
see
hive
where
mindy.
the
That can be a
where the
good thing or a
collective-
bad thing.
Yeah. Right. So do you? I mean, you're kind of lumping in the Chan culture with this. So do you see like the vaporwave arc or the vaporwave? Think of it like a worm, right? It's perdurant. It's got space, and then it's four dimensional. It's got.
Are you
time,
doing Donnie
so it kind of
Darko? Are
squiggles
you doing
out.
Donnie Darko? God damn you.
I've never watched
Oh, really?
that movie.
Oh, well, you should describe
I
it.
would never watch
It's
it.
good. Anyway.
Well, so I've seen it. You got a worm, right? You got your worm. So where does this worm begin and end? Well, we don't know where it ends, but where does it begin? Does it begin like 2000, like 9/11? Like 9/11 is its birthday?
Where does it begin? Okay, things I notice. And some of these things are just broadly like millennial. Mid to late 90s, when all musical subcultures got compressed into emo, right?
Okay.
Right? I am Generation X, right? So all these things are very distinctive to me. You've got goth and all these other subcultures. You've got industrial and all of these other subcultures. You've got punk, and all these are tribes who fight, right? And you cannot put them together.
Yes.
And I have my
They hate
yes,
one
I have my 4 bands, and you have your 4 bands, and I will fight you to the death, right? I love, and then the millennial generation comes along, and they're not so much into fighting, so all subculture gets compressed into one thing called emo, which was confusing for me, being a distant observer.
And it's not for me. It's totally intuitive for me.
Right. So I think that's where it begins.
The crazy thing.
And then when does the word hipster start going into like wide distribution? Like 2010?
Oh, like 2008 or 2010, yeah.
To describe anybody counterculture. Does not matter what.
No.
And the word edgelord as a pejorative. About the same time, right? In the
Really?
90s,
You think so?
edge is a positive thing.
Right, but do you think edgelord exists outside of the Chans like in 10, or was that maybe a bit later?
I don't think
Like hipster, there are people like there were normies in my high school using hipster. Context,
to high
I
school?
graduated I graduated in 12.
Oh, that's perfect.
So-
2010 is when I started noticing it. Hipster, like, what's a hipster? Why are you saying that?
Yeah, but edgelord, I didn't hear. I actually still don't hear normies using edgelord. I mean, well, like normies on the internet, but I've
I get
never
called
heard
that
someone
all the time. Yeah, it is a normie thing.
justifiably so.
It
But
is a normie thing. But
I don't
the
know.
use not.
I'm a normie as far as I know.
But for edge changing from being a positive thing to a negative thing, I think is right about the same time, like 2010, 2008, 2010, or something like that. So I think that's where it begins. And where we are, I think we're in the early artistic phase, right? Like, how do you know? Because there are no words. There are no words for this. And that's how you know it's new. If there were words, then it's not new. It's something old that there's already a word for. This is brand new and there are no words. So we're coining words here. So I think it's in it's artistic phase, and it's people will say that the vaporwave as music, like kind of like peaked and fell, and that might be true. But the greater aesthetic, I don't even want to call. I think it's a whole culture. I think it's a culture already. I think it's a politically influential culture already, which is fast, right? And I don't think anybody has actually sat down and looked at it seriously. I think people are confused. I think people are confused why mainstream culture, let's call it like the tail end of like the human potential movement, the wokeism, right? They're confused why it's so intellectually and creatively infertile. You know what I mean? Infertile is the only word for it. It is literally devouring itself. It has no new ideas. There is nothing more to say.
Yeah.
We are going to revive these IPs. We're going to suck every little tiny morsel of nutrients out of it, and we're going to cast it aside. And they're doing it to themselves. And that's the wave that's declining. And people on the channels, they take a cross section, right? They take a cross section of the culture. It's like, how can you say that these people are in decline? They're more numerous than they have ever been. They control everything, right? How can you say they're going to be here forever? They're going to crush us under their feet. Blah blah blah. Yeah, but don't look at the numbers. Look at the trends. Are they waxing or waning? Do they have ideas or no? Are they passionate? Right. The answer is no. There's no passion in anything that they are doing. It is completely cynical, completely bankrupt.
They're very good at crying.
Oh,
But
yes.
I wouldn't say that's like. They're not only good at crying, but good at broadcasting their crying. Their tears are broadcasted.
Unfun. And that's how you know something has died.
Yeah.
Died.
Yeah.
Not gone, but
Joy.
died. Dead
Yeah.
things can walk around for hundreds of years sometimes.
It's abiotic. It's
Yes.
living dead.
It's living dead.
Yeah.
And very large. because it got well. That generation, they took institutional control like very, very early, right? Like that generation, it took them a long time to get into business, but they took over the media almost immediately. Like, Esquire magazine and Rolling Stone, like back in the 60s. Yeah, they were very vibrant back then. Not correct generally, but vibrant. Vibrancy is a objective term. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, you definitely don't really see much infiltration into business till
I'd say 94. 94 was when Bill Clinton took first baby boomer became president.
Year I was born. That's what happened.
An axial age, if ever there was one.
Yeah.
So many tumblers shifted in 1994, and then again in 2016.
Sign up for this. Where do I back out of the axial age contract? Where do I? How can I tear that up?
I think it's just a thing that happens.
How can I get born like 300 years later?
Oh,
this is difficult, man. It's like we're doing some historical sorcery here.
I think so.
It's very out of my element.
I don't think no. I don't think you're out of your element at all. Maybe you didn't think about it this way before.
Yeah,
but
I'm very used to just kind of porch and staring at rocks and grass. so thinking about history is very different for me.
Oh, Connor's full of crap. This is all he does is think about history. That's why you're here. That is why you are here. Yeah.
Okay, I believe you.
And also, you're my friend.
So as far as like, okay, so we got this this. I don't want to call it a superorganism. It's like a mesoorganism or like a what other pre.
It is a rising
Could
culture.
be-
It's
could be
green
good.
shoots. It's the thing that.
Oh, I'm talking about.
Oh,
I'm
go ahead.
talking about. I'm talking about the human achievement or human development movement. The
the human potential movement. Yeah, that's
Potential, yeah,
That's what
yeah.
that's what George Carlin calls it. I think it's a pretty good word because it was never really about justice. It was always about me. The justice was always a cover.
Right. Dude, that's so ironic because he's like the epitome of that, man.
Is he?
He's like, I don't know. That's what he seems. That's how he's always come off to me. He's just like this guy. He comes off like he spends his evenings, I don't know, jerking off in the corner of his kitchen. That's how I always felt about him.
I think he invented a lot of the things. His album was like 90. It was also 94, I think. 94 or 96 or something like that. You're All Diseased, right? The really caustic
Okay.
the really caustic phase of the woke movement, I believe, stems from that point right there, where you're just hostile with people, right? And you being white, like accuse white people of being white for doing, it kind of begins there.
Yeah.
This is the first time I saw it.
Maybe it's just difficult from my vantage point in the timeline to differentiate these various kinds of nihilism that existed in the few decades before my birth. But I don't know. As far as this organism that's kind of dying off, I mean, I think of this as like I look at the more, you start with a baby and then you go toddler, then you go prepubescent and etc. I think of this as just like a baby that just gets bigger. It's like a big
Well, let's analyze it. I love to analyze that.
Cake baby, and it just grows like one of those like sponge things that you put in water and just gets bigger. Decaying, growing baby.
It is malformed. It is a malformed culture. I'll grant that. It is malformed, but it is definitely. It's like, here's what it is. It's like there was a dude at my church who, when he was 8 years old, he got kicked in the neck by a horse and destroyed his pituitary gland.
Nice.
right? But he continued to age, and
Yeah.
when I knew him, he was an old man. He was an old child. He had physically never matured past 8 years old, but he was all wrinkled and his hair was falling out. That's
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
That is what happened.
Yeah.
An old child.
Thank you, Guy at Will's Church, for being the analogy we needed.
I don't
Yeah,
remember his name. But
It's all right. It works though.
let's analyze it. We'll call it the human potential movement for this show. How far are we?
The Hupham,
Who cares?
the HBM.
We're only 46 minutes into this.
Okay.
It starts. I'm going to say it starts like late 50s.
Yeah.
Beatniks. Like you can't. Well,
Alan Watts.
Alan Watts.
You're like
On
yeah.
the Road, right? Amusingly,
right.
like taken from Japan.
Yeah.
A lot of foreign influences in the human potential movement from India, from Japan, all these things.
Well, it's all about. It's all about superficiality. It's all grasping some kind of image from all these different cultures in a lot of ways, and maybe not getting on the inside of them. I don't know. That's how I always looked at maybe like a Watts or Kerouac or who else? A lot of people in like the sort of early minimalist classical movements, like the Philip Glasses and the Terry Rileys, very like superficial understanding and treatment of these outside cultures.
Yeah. Well, I think it catches. I think it picks up after the previous. Everything is in a state of pseudomorphosis, right? When it starts off,
Right.
It picks up the aesthetics of the thing that is already there, and then it gradually becomes itself, which is zombie movies, right? But I think really, is there any perfect analogy? Any more perfect? But it picks up like the neo-modernist movement, William Carlos Williams, Gertrude Stein, Walt Whitman, all these things, which is very experiential. Like everything is about your personal experience, right?
Yeah.
Very skeptical of high culture, very skeptical of tradition, very radically relativist, right?
Yeah.
And extremely self-centered, like the most selfish culture, like because everything's
and
about,
in some cases very moralistic.
yes. Well, early on, I would say so, but I think the moralism gives way very quickly.
Yeah.
Like
As it always does.
good old Mark Ames, who has turned into a Wookiee. It's too bad, but he put it this way. Dang it! I just lost my thought. Yeah, like take Doonesbury as an example. Like it was very enthusiastically moralistic and anti-system when its readers were children, right? When they were not part of the system, right?
Right.
When they were what? Yeah, when they had no responsibilities. But as soon as they took on those responsibilities, like that comic's still going, right? And it has morphed into like this radically conservative, right? Making excuses for, whatever the baby boomer generation happens to be doing right now, and they're in power, right? So it's a media that is in defense of that power.
Yeah, it's like that. Man, I found like the perfect sort of political graph meme one time, and I don't know where it's on some hard drive somewhere in some trashy, but it says something to the effect of like there's like conservative, libertarian, and an anarchist, right? So the anarchist becomes the conservative when he like has a daughter. The conservative becomes a libertarian when he's getting taxed. The libertarian becomes an anarchist when he gets arrested. Mm-hmm. So it's this loop. It's this loop, and
I hate the political compass.
Many go through that loop. Well, it's not a compass though. That's the thing. It's a loop.
Yeah, well,
you get caught in the loop.
Hang on though, but that loop only describes one generation. You could take like your generation is a completely different loop.
Yeah.
Like your loop,
True.
your generation became very responsible.
All
very
the
early on.
generations have their own. They all have their own sort of nested loops. This is one of many loops.
Yes,
that
one of
people
many
go
loops.
through.
That is one particular loop that applies to them. And people like to generalize because they have no memory, right? They say, oh, well, it's always been that way. No, it hasn't. Like, check the World War II generation. Those kids were adults when they were 16,
Yeah.
right? And you had people killing themselves because they were rejected, because they were not able to serve in the military and go kill themselves, on a battlefield in France.
That is crazy.
Can you
Can
imagine?
you imagine that today?
I think I can.
Can you imagine that?
I think I can. I think.
You think someone's going to kill themselves for not dying in Ukraine right now?
No, not Ukraine, for God's sake. No, but if there was an actual struggle that was important, I think. I think the millennials' desire for purpose is strong. Very strong.
Okay.
I sense it.
I really doubt they want to die in a war though.
Not that
Like-
war.
like
Not that
even-
war. But like an important war.
But it's like what war is going to come around? You're the advertiser, okay? Advertise me a war to go die in, because I see it all as, all these money wars.
Civil War II.
You got to give me a little bit
Civil
more.
War II, motherfucker. Civil War II.
That would be over
Doesn't matter.
in 4 seconds. Are you
If
kidding me?
if there was a realist.
You want what? You want me to go? You want me to go get nuked?
No,
Is that what you're trying to sell me?
If it wasn't if it was an actual war and not just a whole bunch of people being nuked. Let's get back on topic. This is the thing that'll
Okay,
get me.
yeah. Lost your video.
I know. I'm trying to get back on. There we go. Let's get back. Oh, let's go back to our analysis of the human potential movement. Right.
Right.
Okay. Early stages. Radically. Okay, and this is true of a lot of early stage movements. It was true of 4chan also. Right. In the beginning, radically inclusive. Right. Like we don't know what this is yet. Right. I think all cultures and all culture movements within cultures share this in common. Like at the very early on, it's radically inclusive. Like we'll take anybody, even
Except
Nazis.
I was going to say, except maybe blacks, but I guess
course
you didn't necessarily need to advertise that.
Blacks? No.
In the
Very
chants.
early. Oh well, the Chans are anonymous. They
Okay.
don't know who you are. Nobody gets thrown out of
Right,
the
yeah.
Chans for being black.
Yeah, but I'm saying once you introduce that fact, it kind of changes everything.
Well, having
Become
all
that
these
guy.
radical movements rubbing up against each other, yeah, things fall out quickly. But
Right.
have you ever seen the Wild Angels?
No.
You should see the Wild
haven't.
Angels. It is a slice of time. It was 1967. Okay, these are about a group of Nazi hippies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have the swastika.
I've
They have the
met many of
swastika
those.
right in the logo. Well, early on, right? Like you flex on that. Like you anything that pisses off the squares is good, just to show how radical we are and how inclusive we are.
Yeah.
Right? So Nazi, and you know what? You should show off your Nazi stuff. We'll have biker gangs do security for our show in 1968.
Yeah.
Dude. There was I cannot find it. YouTube purged it. But they used to have Lincoln Rockwell speeches. Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
For you guys who don't know, George Lincoln Rockwell was the leader of the American Nazi Party, marched with Malcolm X. Weird time. But he gives a speech
Great stuff.
at... I don't know, you're going to get us in trouble. But
Well, I'm saying it's funny.
it's interesting.
I'm saying great isn't funny.
He gives
Yeah,
a
it's interesting.
speech. It might be my fault. Never mind. I'm not going to say that. He gives a speech at Berkeley, I believe in 1967, right? To all these hip yippies. You still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yippies?
Your video froze. He's giving the speech to all these yippies, right? And they're booing him, they're catcalling him, and he gets up there and he starts talking, and he chastises them for prejudice. You have prejudged me. First, let me say what I have to say, and they cheer him. Berkeley cheered this Nazi guy for speaking out against prejudice. Okay, that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen again.
Great.
But it was like 1967.
Well,
I think
right.
67.
It reminds me of like the Oswald Mosleys of the world. Like they did the same thing, or like they if you want to use the term far right authoritarian groups, parties kind
British
of
Nazi
played this
Party.
like
He's a
free
Nazi.
speech card.
British Fascist Party. That was the name of his party. You can go with that.
Well, I'm just saying throughout Europe, like there was plenty of like the free speech card being played,
Sure.
right? Which is of course like, you know, do they care about that in any kind of absolute sense or beyond like their own opportunistic political goals? Of course not.
They believe in it
And
for
it's-
themselves.
Right,
As
yeah,
outsiders.
Right. And it's like the same similar thing kind of went on in certain parts of, you know, I get the right in America and in Europe. Some elements of it, you could say, kind of play the same tactic. But you don't think?
Well, sure. I think it's absolutely. I think everybody is
Right. No, I'm just
for free
I'm
speech
just
for
saying like
themselves.
this. Right. Yeah. Obviously, that's not as magnificent as like a bunch of Berkeleyites cheering on George Lincoln Rockwell. I think kind of similar dynamic.
Right. Well, I was using that as an example of like how very early on in the movement,
Right.
like how radically inclusive they were. I think that
Right.
goes away really fast, right?
Yeah.
And then what? Moving up into the 70s, like you get like the actual human potential movement. The activism kind of dies down. In fact, the activism stops in 1968. It stops, like after the Kent State shooting, right?
Right. Okay.
After that, there was no more demonstrations. Nobody came out to demonstrate anymore. People misremember that, like, oh, it continued, like, into the... No. Stop, dead, 1968. And it becomes more about music, experientialism, and, yeah, those things. And you get, like, all these cults, like, rising up, like like EST training. You know that, right? These psychological camps, like millions of people join these things.
Oh, yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, where you go to like these seminars and they teach you how to get what you want, like to be yourself,
Yeah.
like to self-actualize,
Right.
to cope with having it all. You know, these ridiculous things
Yeah.
that would be embarrassing these
Yeah.
days.
Like the very like Maslow kind of
Yes.
influence stuff going on. Yeah.
Yes. That was it came up a couple times in that 70s show, which I thought was a great little nod. These forgotten things. Yeah, orgies and porn. Let's not forget porn.
Yeah.
Yeah, all about
I mean, I'd like to, but
exploring your sexuality, exploring your feelings, like removing the barriers that your parents and the government put inside you that are the barriers for you getting what you want, right?
and it's
That's
your
right.
sexuality.
Your
and
sexuality.
they truly
Your
are
feelings.
your. They're
They
not.
are
They're not
yours.
implanted. They're not artificial. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that is the core of it. I think that always was the core of it. Like, what did Marcus Aurelius say? What is the thing in and of itself? That is the thing in and of itself. It was never about the justice. It was never really about the aesthetics either. It was all about me, like self-actualization,
Right.
which is not all bad. It's just mostly bad. 98% bad. Just horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's when that's all there is. It's
Yeah.
pretty nihilistic.
It is. It's very. It's a very good way to become a very unhappy person, a very resentful person, and a person
Right,
who
yeah.
is resented by his children, his neighbors, and everybody else. Man, I'm not going to bring up, but I got family members who are just destroyed by that, following that path, and now they're in their 70s and they're alone and they live in San Francisco and they screech about Trump all day and smoke pot, and that's their life.
Yeah. I know the type. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But okay, so
that gets us to the 1970s,
that's kind of the yeah.
and then
So
moving into the
that's kind of like
go ahead.
the well. So we got this baby that's like growing in a tub of water, right? This is a sponge baby. It's at this point it's maybe about like a foot tall, right? We're trying to get it. We're trying to get to the point where it's like the size of a human being. A
On a
full-grown
time
human
scale,
being,
they're young adults, but
right?
Mentally, yes, they'll always be children.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're young adults. So 80s, they start moving into the workplace, right? And
Right.
in their own mythology, the yuppies and the hippies are opposite, but really they're one and the same. They're like the same people. Yeah, the yippies became
Yeah.
the yuppies, right? And they put on ties and like who was it? Like not Abby Hoffman, but one of the original yippies, like what was Adam Curtis did a documentary where they caught up with this guy and he's running a Lamborghini dealership like in the valley, like this idealistic guy. Was it Abby Hoffman? It was one of those guys. It wasn't Abby Hoffman, but somebody like that.
I know a guy who let's call him Stu.
Let's call him
He's
Stu.
got it rhymes with his real name. He's got big long gray bearded or braided beard. He was caught up in all of that in the late 60s and early 70s, and he was a lawyer. I can't remember what his particular practice was, but he was doing something like oh man.
The story going somewhere? Hello? There you are. You cut out for a sec.
Back. No. What's this you stuff? That was all you.
Fine, whatever. All right. Oh, no, that's too big. Anyway, long gray beard, and then I lost you.
Oh, yeah, so this Stu, right? He's like a long gray beard. He's a lawyer. He's like defending just the worst people. He owns a bar. He plays in a sludge metal band. I mean, he's one of the iconic like aging human potential movement type people. I think it's
I have an uncle like that.
that's kind of my
I have an uncle like that. Like, well, as this thing moves through time, like it casts off all these movements. Like the Rainbow Gathering goes this way, and the Rajneeshis go that way. Like, not everybody buys into like the mainstream flow of the way the culture's going. Like, you have like little eddies and whirlpools, and all these. It casts off like these little subcultures. Where'd I lose you? Where'd I lose you? I'll cut that out. Where'd I lose you?
Yeah. That's all right. That's like a useless digression. But so you ended speaking about relatives, like aging hippie relatives. We were talking about the difference of methodology, but like the sameness of substance of the yuppies and the hippies.
Oh, and I was just saying, as this moves through time, right? As the mainstream current of the human potential movement moves through time, and it changes, like it casts off like these little subcultures, like the Rainbow Gathering and Burning Man and the Rajneeshis, right? Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh and all these things. But the main core, the core of the movement, like flows through like yuppiedom, right? Up until 1994. Right. I have no evidence of this, but okay. Remember Volkswagen? Remember the new Beetle?
Probably not how you do, but
They ran a television ad, and this is real, and I have looked for it and I cannot find it, and their slogan was this, which so perfectly sums it up. If you sold your soul in the 80s, now's your chance to buy it back.
okay.
Does that
Yeah.
does that perfectly sum that up? So 1994, okay, 92, Bill Clinton is elected president, ushering in the imperial age of the baby boomers, right? Where they're in political control,
Right.
and they're mostly in control of business by this point, right?
Right.
Which causes this this huge shift, right, throughout all the culture, right? It's very interesting. That's when political correctness becomes a thing. That's when the hillbillies become like the boogeyman for everybody, right? That's when and as a consequence of that, you get the great rednecking. The great rednecking of America begins in about 1984, like with the Dixie Chicks. I don't know. You may not be old enough to remember this, but there was a time when country music was it was not a popular thing. It was very isolated to like if you were
Right.
Southern or if you were an actual cowboy, right? But it wasn't like a wine mom thing, right? As
Right, yeah.
as of 1994, right? The great redneck. Okay, the accents, the Southern accents, like you have like the high register, like non-rhotic Southern accent where you talk like Rhett Butler and Scarlett O'Hara and blah blah blah. Do you have I've got to get the papers. That drops out of the culture entirely. It's dead. Like those people refuse to speak it because it's shameful to be Southern now, because they're now the scapegoat for everything.
People are living in
But
caves
but
right now.
the rhotic, the twangy the redneck language, like the Appalachian language, spread across the country and became like the default accent of
Yeah.
everybody who was working class. Small digression.
Yeah, I think there's maybe some post irony
That's
in that
interesting,
too.
isn't
Like there's also like there's like a maybe you get the same thing with a lot of black culture.
Oh dear,
where
that's a
it's
whole
like
thing for a whole other show.
it's
That's the thing for a whole other show.
yeah, but it accepts its sort of, for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
trashiness, and like it, makes that transvaluating
Yes.
in a sense. It's almost. I mean, it's a flex.
It is.
It's like
it's
look, I'm not you. You know.
Well, that happens too. Early '90s, like hip hop becomes a white thing, I guess you could say, right? Because they had abolished.
Right. Yeah.
They had abolished traditional masculinity. Like the first thing that the baby boomers do when they went into media is they canceled all the cowboy shows. Right? There's an article in Wikipedia called the Rural Purge. Like all these popular shows that made
Yeah.
money, like the Beverly Hillbillies and Green Acres and like all these cowboy shows. They moved
Yeah.
in and they canceled them all for spite. No other reason. They just canceled them out of spite. So having canceled every traditional icon of masculinity, like you throw masculinity out the front door, masculinity sneaks back in the back door in the form of gangsterdom, right? If you want to be perceived as like masculine or having masculine value, you speak like a gangster.
Yeah, I do see that. I wonder if this rural purge is like responsible for getting Alzheimer's too, because it's like this thing. I'm thinking of my grandfather. He's big into these westerns,
Oh yeah.
and he's like, when you strip away his entire like sense of object permanent wonky, you strip away those westerns and like his whole the axis mundi by which he holds the world together is gone. So it's, his masculinity is kind of bound up in that.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, that's probably a whole lot of projection, but I do
Yes,
see.
that is a
hypothesis.
weird sidebar, but thank you for mentioning
Yeah.
that, your grandpa. Yeah, I know a lot of people like that. Continue to live in the past. Got a picture of John Wayne up over there, like woodbine, like a TV set.
But it's like when that past is gone, you can't operate in the present. Like you can't, without that sort of pull in the ground. Like you don't even know It's like you need John Wayne to understand what Bitcoin is. You get me? Like you like my grandfather without Westerns, he can't like have that sort of trail, right? And I'm like, well, where the hell am I?
Oh, I see. Well, you said Axis Mundi, so I get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, cancel culture, not a new thing. Never was.
No, it's a new name.
It's a new name. It's a new name.
I think that new
for
name,
an ancient thing.
but I think that's comes with that new name comes a different way of understanding it. Because
Yes.
it's like what it's like a television show getting canceled, right? That's how I've always thought about it. And the reviews were crappy. It didn't get enough people tuning in.
Yeah.
And now we're just gonna take it off, and nobody will remember this thing ever.
Right. Well, this is canceled
Gone.
on
Right out
moral
of the history
grounds.
books.
Canceled on moral grounds
Yeah.
because they hated it.
Yeah.
That's the reason.
It's TV morality.
Yeah.
That's how I've always thought of. Well, I'm saying it's like, so maybe like the well, we're talking has been around for a while, but I think the method's very different, and the conception of it is very different too.
Right.
I don't know.
So,
What do you think of that?
to put these in Spenglerian terms, this thing has its spring, summer, fall, and winter. The springtime is like the early 60s where you're like, Nazi hippies, right? What is this? We're figuring this out. Moving through summer, which is like the summer of love, Woodstock, where it's like widespread, right? You get the 80s, which is the reversal, where they put aside the religion. They put aside their religion and like kind of do the opposite, right? They kind of go against their religion for a while, repudiate it, and then you get the synthesis, right? Where you get the yuppie and the hippie come together to make this god awful thing that rules our country now.
The yippie.
The yuppie hippie, the wokey is the yuppie hippie. The Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is the perfect example of what that is. Yeah.
I think
Yuppie-dom
even the who's the gay guy that took over for
Tim
him
Cook.
or whatever.
Tim Cook.
Yeah. He's even a better example, I think.
Well, they're all clones of him. Everybody's imitating him.
Yeah,
But
I
it
think
is
the
their final
clone-
form.
yeah. Well, I think the clone's the final form. I think like that's like we're talking like Steve Jobs is November, the clone is December. You get me? Like I think that's where it's just like that's I don't know. I'm not sure.
No,
Does it get worse than that?
It's well, gosh, they've been in power since 1994, 1992. They're moving through senility. Like it's dead and it's desiccating.
Yeah.
It's dead and it's desiccating.
It's just like how long, how many like kinds of surgeries, how many esoteric cancer treatments are they going to continue to come up with to keep them depressed?
I see. Well,
Prop them
drugs, whatever drugs they're pumping into
know.
it, it's making him. Well, they're keeping him alive, like in the person of Joe Biden. He's like the perfect example for that. Who
He's
could
got
better
the
embody?
slime.
Yeah,
The slime is in him.
Yes.
It's controlling him. Like he's just like this like skin suit with the slime inside. Yeah.
he so perfectly represents that generation.
Yeah.
Shambling, like says stupid things, poops his pants.
Those teeth are just so great. I mean, they're true slime teeth. True slime teeth. I can only hope to have such great teeth, like our. I don't know. Is he our president? I don't know. I'm not. I don't know.
If you told me he was like a projected hologram, I would not dismiss you out of hand. I'd say, oh, that's possible. Show me your evidence.
Yeah, I would be. I mean, I would spend a few hours reading the investigative report about that for sure. For sure.
Anyway, so yeah, that's where I think they are. I don't think their infertility, I don't think their senility of that culture needs to be further representative, further explained. I mean, I think it's self-evident, right?
Right. Okay, so that's our wave's going to land right on top of them.
I wanted to
It's just gonna land
say
on
one
top
more
of them,
thing about
fart
that.
really loud.
If we have correctly, I'm not sure that we have, because there's a lot to this,
No.
and I don't know if I see everything.
Right.
If we have correctly identified like the thing in and of itself, like the core of what this thing is, what can we expect to see it do over time? One thing out the gate, it's going to start amassing confidence, right? It's by its nature, it's something that's very loath to take itself seriously, right? Because not taking things seriously is like one of the core values, right? So it's going to be very, dude. If those people, if you guys started taking yourself seriously, like seriously as adults, the world would tremble. The galaxy would shake. There's so much power there.
Oh my gosh.
But lack of imagination, people are very reticent to see things any different from the way they are, right?
Right.
And also, life is a joke, right? That's kind of core.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. It's happening, right? When you guys start realizing how much power you actually have, it's going to be like Paul fucking Atreides. Whew. Like, billions dead in the jihad.
I think it's largely a matter of like figuring out. It's a matter of play in that broad sense of the term. So not like just like your kids are playing in the sandbox, but like the play bill. Right? So like there's potential in it. I think it's a matter of figuring out the play in the kind of legal and cultural infrastructure, but like taxes and regulation are just like a huge chokehold on everything right now. I mean, any male like my age, I think is like trying to do anything is you got to jump through like 6 friggin' hoops of fire with all these rules, with all these whatevers, right? So a lot of it is, I think, is figuring out how to play, is how to play with, how to subvert it in a very positive way, not in like a cynical or degenerative kind of sense. I'm talking like again, it's a kind of simultaneous flex. You're like, look what I made out of your thing that you left me. It's like 3D printed guns. 3D printed guns are a great example. Like, look at this. Look, the NRA is not lobbying to allow people to manufacture their own weapons because the NRA doesn't actually care about what they care about. Their interests are diverse. Right, they work for the gun lobby. Right, so it's like take the words, take the sentiments, and be the mirror, right? Be kind of like, oh hey, this is what you actually left us. This is where it goes when you take it to its extremes. And I'm not talking about like being violent or anything. I'm saying more like kind of scoop up a big heap of those laws and those rules and just kind of mold it together like Play-Doh. And I know I'm being very abstract and very general and very vague here because I'm saying because like you try to start a business, you try to do anything that isn't like usurious.
Oh, you're talking about like obstacles to, I hear that.
Yeah,
but
right.
I also believe that nothing can stand in the way of an indomitable will. You're having these troubles because you're trying to fight a organized system individually. Okay, and you need to fight it collectively, which means you need to be organized and you need to have institutions. Okay?
I think that's going on. I mean, I think that is
not in a
in
useful
ways
way.
that I can
Not
speak about.
not
Not
run,
in ways that I
not
can
pooping
speak
on the
about
street
here.
and protesting, but like civic institutions.
Right, yeah.
All you guys are unemployed anyway.
Right, yeah.
Volunteer for these civic institutions that do
Oh.
positive change. Right?
Yeah.
Not activism. Not activism's the wrong word because activism is stupid.
Again, I think it's, well, I mean, you're thinking very generationally, and I mean, within the generation, there's lots of
Sure.
non-cooperative elements. I mean, I think that there are people who are trying to do that. There are people who are trying to put together novel organizations.
Right. Well, this is what I mean by taking yourself seriously.
Right. Yeah.
Get out, event, it has to happen. Maybe it takes a crisis to make it happen. I think it usually does. But when you are driven by passion or necessity to act in the world, I believe it will catch on very quickly. It will just like zip, like pulling a loose thread on a sweater. It'll all come, and I believe you will remake the world in your image within a decade. It'll happen boom overnight. It'll be the most exciting thing that has happened in 150 years.
What I wonder is that going to be like the people that are preparing for it now and everyone kind of hops into their thing, or is it going to be more spontaneous, like when that critical period hits?
I think there has to be a catalyzing event. We're going through a period of hyper-normalization where people literally cannot imagine things being any different than they are. It's like the late Soviet Union. Like, I don't know. Yeah. So they insist that it's going to be more of the same. Oop. That means we're on our third hour. They're going to insist. They will insist. I sit down and argue with these people, they insist that the future will be more of the same, right? That right. Yeah. The bad guys, this desiccated corpse that oppresses them, is going to continue to do so forever, and it's just going to get worse. And they're going to take this away from you. They're going to take that away from you. They're going to make you eat the bugs, and well, certainly they're going to try, but they're so weak. Like, poof, you wouldn't have to try very hard. Just blow on them a little bit and they'll fall right over. And I think once people realize that, and that day is coming, I believe, when people realize just how weak they are and how strong they are, it will be like explosion. Culture explosion. Civic explosion.
Maybe. I mean, we're not there yet, so maybe I'm having a hard time visualizing it. But
I see so much power over here,
widespread,
and so much weakness over here.
Yeah,
and it's out of balance.
I don't see, but the weakness, you got to think about the slime, man. The slime is very important. The slime that keeps that weakness propped up.
They'll try, but there's nothing they can do.
But it's like
there's nothing they can do except call you names.
Names are powerful. That's why in many cultures you get several.
Yes, sure.
That's why they're like whole powers. Yeah.
The names have lost their power. Like if somebody calls you like a racist or a fascist or a misogynist or a white supremacist, you just blow them off.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point where like I don't even resist. Like I just assume they're talking about me. I'm not any of those things. But when they talk, oh, you're talking about me? I didn't do any of that. Screw you. I think they're losing their power rapidly. This is going to be a really interesting show. You've been blurry the whole time.
All rats. I'm sorry. All rat. No, sure. You okay? I thought it was the club for my birthday.
Connor?
Sorry about that.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is going to be an odd show. You've been like 7 days. Like your face has been distorted in that frame for almost the entire thing.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, so
So make a prediction. We'll wrap this up.
well, again, I think that the slime is the character of slime is very important too, and it does. You're talking about names, right? Being called names. I think that's very integral to the nature of the slime that's propping the Joe Bidens of the world up, right? It's. I think, I'm thinking what people in my generation, the Zoomers too, what they're going to be largely up against is a sort of hybrid state. That's kind of what their enemy. It's a human AI hybrid state. I mean, people. AI, blah blah blah. No, I'm not talking. No. I'm not talking about like whatever these singularity crap. I'm talking about what you're already seeing now in how companies are managed and how many government organizations are managed. Decision making that's like not fully understood by people who are enacting, right? Who are bureaucrats who are enacting certain policies, who are enforcing certain policies. I mean, these things are already going on. Like you work for any American corporation, they use AI to determine prices. They use AI to determine like schedules and all kinds of things like that. I see that becoming like this sort of, that's the slime, right?
Yeah.
That's the kind of slime propping these people up. I do think that is a serious threat. I mean, I don't. People get into these like apocalyptic sort of things with AI. I don't think it's anything like that. I mean, humans are there's ingenuity to us, and I think we can very easily adapt
to
like
as individuals do against, like you perfectly summarized the cultural malaise. That's now.
Right.
That's now, and that's the that attitude is the thing that is has halted the development of your culture, right? The fatalism.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's I wasn't trying to get fatalistic.
It's extremely fatalistic. All this NWO stuff.
I was trying to create a description of what. Okay.
What you're up against? I guess sure. Like a few people with very cool machines. Big deal. Take it into meat space. Take it into the world.
It's the slime.
Don't act online.
Right.
They control that. Like when my point is when you start acting in the world, like in the physical world, you'll realize just how absolutely you dominate that space.
And this is why I disappear for long periods of time. It's what I'm doing for the most part.
Acting in the
Sometimes
world.
I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, but what I was getting at before, I think it largely is a matter of play. Like it is a matter of not engaging on the terms that you're given. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. That's good. Like when you're, I mean, it's like you got a word like racist, right? Like you got a word like racist that has a very well documented genealogy.
Sure.
It has its origins in black magic.
Oh, does it?
In dark sorcery.
Oh
yes. Well, Trotsky.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you look at that and you go, wait, hold on. That word was not always around. That abracadabra word you just threw at me was not always around. You look at laws in the same way. Not in the sense of like taking things from people that actually deserve them, right? But you start to look at and really focus on the difference between customs and natural law, right? And that, I think, when you start to really focus on that and focus on like what kinds of things are like what rules am I obeying like totally needlessly, right? That are just, they're rules, they're not laws, right? They're not, it's not natural law, it's just this fake kind of whatever. I think when people start thinking in that sort of way, they start thinking playfully in that kind of way, that's kind of the key, at least at an individual level. Of course, I'm speaking, so I can only kind of give advice to individuals, like generally, right? I'm speaking generally to several different individuals, but I think that kind of mentality, when it manifests corporately, it's very dangerous.
Corporately, you don't mean by in a corporation, but materially.
As organizationally,
Oh, yes. Okay. Corporately, in a body. Yes.
yeah.
I'm with you. Man. Like the worst case scenario is they all die. They all die, and you realize they were in control of the world.
They would build
It'll happen.
museums, or they would try to build museums.
No, man, they're all dead. They're all dead.
In memorial of the boomers or whoever else, the
They're
human potential
all
movement.
dead. Who's going to build? No, they're going to be forgotten. They'll be castigated like the worst generation in American history.
Well, maybe. It's all about what happens with the slime, man.
I think
that
we
that's
are on
really-
90 minutes, and we have to close this down. But I think this deserves a part 2. Next time, I want to talk about the future. What is the future? And I don't want to hear a bunch of crap about how it can't be done. I want to hear positive statements about the future.
All right,
Okay.
we'll see.
All right. So we'll sign off. This has been Connor,
Sign off.
and I am me, and this has been a good show, and I'll upload this really soon. Talk to you later, man.
All right, you take care, man.